Hello, my friends and fellow travelers. My name is Pierce. This is my channel, Tales from the Road. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back again. And if you're new to the travel guide series, in my Real Talk travel guides, we get down to the brass tacks of traveling. I'm trying to give you the real information, the stuff that you don't find in guidebooks, and certainly not the stuff you get from normal influencer vloggers. In this video, we're going to talk about the beautiful Mediterranean nation of Cyprus. It's becoming an increasingly popular tourist destination, but it is an island with its own challenges. And in this video, we're gonna break down everything you need to know before you go. So if that sounds good, let's get Mediterranean and talk about Cyprus. As we always do with these videos, let's talk a little historical and geographic context so we can get to know Cyprus a little bit better before we visit. Geographically speaking, you can find Cyprus in the eastern Mediterranean Sea. It's an island nation, one of the largest islands in the Mediterranean, along with other popular tourist destinations such as Sicily, Corsica, and Sardinia. Cyprus is actually in an interesting spot. It's got Egypt to its south, it's got Turkey to its north, and it's got Israel, Palestine, Lebanon to its east. That means that the historical context for Cyprus is incredibly complicated, as everybody in the eastern Mediterranean, depends on what area you're talking about, wanted control of this island. I think one of the cool things you'll see when you go to Cyprus is the fact that so many people came through this island, conquered it, built some stuff, were reconquered, tore the stuff down, built some new stuff. It's like a never-ending cycle. You had the Egyptians in Cyprus, the Persians, the Arabs, the Romans, the Turks, the British. I mean, many empires have rolled through here and left a little bit, which is very interesting. I think the modern context that you would need to know before you go to Cyprus is that Cyprus was a part of the Ottoman Empire for about 300 years. Although there were Greek-speaking Cypriots who had been living on the island for a long time, since the Eastern Roman Empire. When the Ottoman Empire crumbled into bits at the end of the 1800s, the British came to Cyprus, seized it as a very good military outpost for controlling the Eastern Mediterranean, as the British Empire was also involved in Egypt. They were also involved in the Palestine area, so it was a good military outpost. The long and short of it is the British left in 1960, forming the Republic of Cyprus. On Cyprus, there were Greek Cypriot people, there were Turkish Cypriot people, and they lived in harmony, they lived together through many, many empires. And when you have competing ethnic groups trying to seize politics within a country, of course some political violence started. The UN peacekeeping troops were sent in, the Greeks backed a coup d'etat to take over the government, the Turks responded by sending in troops and occupying the northern part of Cyprus. Families were destroyed, people were forcibly moved from one side of the island to the other, communities were broken apart forever, and then something called the Green Line was put in to split the Turks and the Greeks on their own sides of the island. It's actually a very sad story, because when you talk to a lot of Cypriot people, their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers lived more or less next to each other, Turks and Greeks on the same island for a long time, and it wasn't until this time in the 60s and the 70s that this major split really happened. And if you know anything about Greek and Turk relations today, the Turks have doubled down, reaffirming that the Northern Republic of Cyprus, or the Turkish Republic of Cyprus, is a thing. It's the only country to do so, and it's become a de facto sort of occupied zone of Turkey. The other side of the island is a European Union official Republic of Cyprus, sponsored of course by the Greek government, but is seen by the rest of the European Union as the legitimate government of Cyprus. It's messy, it's complicated, it's not ideal, but that is the reality of Cyprus today. If you're watching this video and you have political opinions about Cyprus and you feel like I left something out, I'm just trying to do a quick overview. I have no dog in this fight at all. And if you want more information on this conflict, there's plenty of amazing information on YouTube that you can find, books, encyclopedias, historical documents, all that jazz. Regardless on what side of Cyprus you find yourself on as a tourist, it is an amazing, beautiful country with great beaches, historical sites, good food, and good vibes. So I don't want to turn you off to Cyprus at all. That is just the reality on the ground, and there's still definitely animosity that can be felt. As a tourist, will you feel it? Probably not. So let me tell you more about traveling to Cyprus and the practical information. Visas. As far as the visa situation for Americans traveling to Cyprus goes, it's really not that complicated. But the island does have two border controls, one by an unrecognized Turkish-officiated government, one by an EU-recognized government, which is the Republic of Cyprus. Most tourists, of course, flying to the Republic of Cyprus. You could go to Paphos, you could go to the Greek side of Nicosia, you could go to Limassol. So when you enter there, you're entering the EU, but you're not entering the Schengen zone just because the northern occupied side of Cyprus doesn't really reflect the border patrol regulations of the EU. So you're going to get a full 90 days when you fly into Cyprus, which is nice. And of course, if you visit like Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, it doesn't take any time away from your time in Cyprus, which is nice. The weird part is when you get into Nicosia. Nicosia is like Berlin of like 1985. There's basically a big wall in the middle of the city. You have the Greek side on one side, you have the Turkish side on the other side. And if you want to go between the two, which you actually can without an issue, you do need to go through a border control. Now, when I went through the border control, you don't have to get a stamp or anything. You just have to use your passport and you can go through either side. If you want to stay longer on the Turkish side, you're going to need to get some sort of permission from the Northern Cypriot Turkish government. If you just want to take a day trip, see the Turkish side of Nicosia, which is very interesting, and then pop back over to the Greek side because you're staying in Paphos or something and you want to take a day trip, you can also do that. Just make sure to not lose your passport and make sure to not get into any trouble because once you're on the Turkish side, you're no longer under the mandate of anything Cypriot EU related. It's a strange situation. Money. When I normally do these videos about European countries, I never feel like I should add so much information, but this one I definitely do. When you're on the Greek side, you're going to use the euro. Cyprus is not the cheapest country in the world, not the most expensive country in the world. I was staying in a hostel for like 30 euros a night, hotels between 80 and 100 euros a night. You can eat at a restaurant, like for a normal dinner, between 15 and 20 euros. Of course, the euro is something like 0.9 to $1. So if it's 20 euros, it's something like $22, $23. It's a reasonable deal. It's definitely cheaper than some of the, I guess, Greek islands that a lot of people like to visit, like Santorini and Mykonos, but you can kind of get the same vibe because you're in the same kind of area within the world. So that's nice. However, if you want to cross into the Turkish side of Nicosia or you want to travel around the northern part of Cyprus, you are going to run into a weird thing where they actually don't use the euro, but they will take the euro. They quote all of the prices in Turkish lira, which is of course the national currency of Turkey. And you can pay with card, which is nice, but you're going to pay in lira and you're not going to pay in euros. So that was very strange. In all honesty, I've never seen such a bipolar country. If you're in Nicosia on the Greek side, you're going to use the euro, you're in the EU, everything's kind of normalized, and then you cross literally 2 kilometers onto the other side of Nicosia to the Turkish side. You're using the lira, everyone's speaking Turkish. The Islamic thing is very different as the Greek side, of course, everybody is Christian or Greek Orthodox. So it's like such a bipolar place, including the money, including the visas. It's a very unique experience going to this country. Transportation. Flying to Cyprus at this moment is actually pretty reasonable because it's a good crossover point for a lot of flights which actually connect to the Middle East, specifically like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, a lot of people who are going to Jordan. I actually went to Jordan via Cyprus. So there's a lot of cheap airlines like Wizz Air flies there, Ryanair flies there. So there's a lot of cheap flights from Europe. If you're coming internationally, you're probably going to fly into Nicosia because that's the biggest airport. But there are a lot of flights that, change in the middle part of Europe, which can, of course, go to Paphos, which is where I flew to, Limassol, or Larnaca. There's a lot of airport options when you go to Cyprus. Once you get into Cyprus, the country itself is not very big, and I would probably recommend renting a car because it would be a lot easier to travel from place to place. I was taking the buses, and of course, there are buses that go from point A to point B, whatever cities there are. However, I found that online, the bus schedules were really confusing. They were only written in Greek sometimes, and sometimes the schedule online was actually different than the schedule in person. You can go to the bus station. Of course, they can help you, but when I was there, sometimes people weren't at the bus station, and there was a lot of people just sort of sitting around. So I was going to go on a day trip from Paphos to Limassol, and the bus just like never showed up, even though there was one on the website. Rent a car, it's much easier. I think you'd have a much easier trip. But if you want to go by bus, you can definitely go by bus. However, if you do rent a car in the Republic of Cyprus and you want to cross into the Northern Turkish Republic of Cyprus, I would just make sure to double check the regulations with your car company that you can do that, because I have no idea about the border security for cars and transportation between the two republics. It's very strange. So make sure to 100% know what you're doing because the borders are very, very tense. Safety and security. Cyprus itself is actually a very chill and relaxed place. I think the only place with a little shady business going on is probably Nicosia. It's the biggest city. It's got the most stuff going on. And actually on the northern side of Nicosia and the Turkish Republic side, there's a big sort of unspoken prostitution and nightclub scene, which was actually made illegal in the southern part. So a lot of people do their bad business in the north and they return to the south. So I don't know what that really means. There are a lot of clubs. There's a lot of drunk people. A lot of people go to Cyprus, of course, to party because of the nice weather, because of the beaches. I mean, it's a party island in the Mediterranean for a lot of people. So I think there's that, just make sure you know what you're doing. You're in the right place at the right time, and I think you'll be fine. I don't think you'd encounter anything in Cyprus that you wouldn't encounter anywhere else. I felt 100% safe the whole time I was there. A fun fact about Cyprus is that it's a country with a lot of cultural changes happening right now. When you're on the Greek side, many people speak Greek as a first language, Cypriot Greek. But they all speak English pretty well because it was an English territory for like a long period of time. It's very unusual to find people that really don't speak any English, also because of the tourism situation. Also, if you go to places specifically like Limassol or Paphos, there are now tons and tons of Russians who have moved their companies from Russia because of the war with Ukraine and because of the economic sanctions. There's been a lot of push to move a lot of the Russian assets to Cyprus. So when you're in Limassol, for example, the chance that you will hear Russian, whether it's spoken by a taxi driver, whether it's spoken by a bus driver, whether it's just spoken by Russian people living there, that's really the case. It's sort of an interesting thing that has sort of occurred in the last 3 to 4 years, but there's a lot of new Russian money in Cyprus, and it's notable because you can see the change. Now, when you go to the Turkish Republic of Cyprus, the northern side, everyone speaks Turkish, no one's speaking Greek, and the English is a little bit less common. It just feels very, very different. I've spent a lot of time in Turkey, and it feels like the most old school version of Turkey, like when you travel to the center of the country. That's really how the northern side felt for me, at least when I traveled to Nicosia. The northern side, because of the political situation, gets a lot less tourists. So if you want to tour the north, make sure to read up on the regulations of how to do that properly and what sort of documentation you need. Now, on to my favorite section, food. And if you've made it this far in the video, number 1, you're a legend. Number 2, if you could like and subscribe, that would be very helpful. I'm trying to grow this channel, trying to spread real travel information to people so they can travel better. That's the goal. So the food that you're going to find in the Republic of Cyprus, of course, is going to be deeply Greek influenced. First of all, they have a meze culture. Meze is little small plates where you can try many different varieties of Greek food. Super delicious, very authentic. Cyprus itself has a couple dishes that are standouts that are different than what you would find in Greece itself. Number 1 would be the use of halloumi. Halloumi, of course, you'll find in Greece as well. Halloumi is a stiff cheese that you can actually grill and it won't melt. But the Cypriots really love to use halloumi in a lot of different things, including in bread. So if you have the chance to try some grilled halloumi, I would definitely go for it. Some foods I would be on the lookout if I was you is some fresh fish. Awesome. Any type of fresh grilled fish in Cyprus, do it. Of course, grilled octopus, also very, very good. There's a Greek dish called pastitsio, which is basically like a macaroni layered lasagna, I guess is a way to put it, or something very similar to moussaka, which is bechamel and eggplant and meat, except in this case it has macaroni. Their version is called makarania tu fornu and is absolutely delicious. Something else you can try are koupepia, which I actually cooked for my project 197, which are basically very similar to dolmadakia, stuffed grape leaves, but the Cypriot version differs a little bit than what you would find in mainland Greece. If you travel to the northern side of Cyprus, you'll obviously see a big change in food, changing from Greek-influenced food to Turkish-influenced food. The one dish you should definitely try when you're up there is sheftalia kebab. Sheftalia is peach in Turkish, and this is a specifically spiced kebab wrapped in caul fat and grilled over open flame. Very, very delicious. The hard part about talking about the food is that the Greek food and the Turkish food honestly have a lot of similarities, but both sides claim the invention of the foods. So you could have, for example, a Greek coffee, which is the stone ground, very thick, small coffee on the Greek side, and then you could have the same but called Turkish coffee on the north side. The same goes with baklava. Of course, the Turks love their baklava, but hey, baklava is a Greek dish, so you can't really win on either side. Regardless of what you do, whether it's pastries, whether it's meats, whether it's meze, The north side, the south side, the food is going to be great. The one thing that you're going to see on the south that you won't see on the north is anything with pork in it. Obviously, because Turkish being Muslim, they don't typically eat pork. In the south, the Orthodox Greeks, of course, they do eat pork. So if you enjoy pork, you're going to enjoy the south side a little bit better. To finish the video, I'm going to give you the impression of some of the cities that I went to. I'm not really going to tell you what to do because honestly, Cyprus is more of a tourist, lay on the beach, chill sort of vibe country. There's not a crazy amount of things to discover. Of course, there are good museums. Of course, the capital city has some city life. But in general, it's sort of a beach vacation zone, and that's definitely not me. So I started my trip in Paphos. It's a small city on the northwestern side of the country. They have a nice access to various Roman ruins, and they also have really good Roman mosaics that you can check out, which I would definitely recommend. There's also a huge British influence in Paphos, a lot of British bars, people speaking English, people drinking Guinness, and a lot of, British people all red-faced in the sun. There's definitely that, so I think that's sort of a funny component. But I liked Paphos. It was small, it was chill, it had a good vibe, and it wasn't overly expensive. I also visited Limassol with all the Russians. Limassol has a beautiful promenade that you can walk on the coast. The city itself is pretty meh. Not that it's bad, it's just there's not much to do there besides enjoying being by the sea. They have good restaurants, they have a lot of modern things because of all the new money there, but I wouldn't say there's so much to do there that I would make a whole vacation out of going to Limassol. Also, when you go to Limassol, when you go to Paphos, when you go to Larnaca, these are all beach clubbing destinations. So that's also a reason why a lot of people go down there. They spend the weekend. So there is a little bit of monkey business where if you're into the monkey business, then it's a good place for you. If you're not into the monkey business, you can enjoy the beach, of course, by the day. And you can, of course, explore the coastline, hop on a bus. You can, of course, see Roman ruins. You can go for hiking in the mountains nearby. All of that's good. All totally recommended. Another place people really enjoy is Ayia Napa, which is in the northeast of the country. Kind of the same vibe no matter where you are. You've got Roman ruins, you've got maybe some old Ottoman stuff, you have cute little cities, you have a lot of tourist stuff, you have a lot of people drunk on the beach. I think that's sort of the Cyprus that I imagine in my head. The most interesting place, and I don't know if it's the best place, but the most interesting place is certainly Nicosia. Nicosia is famous for basically being the Berlin of modern Europe today. You have the Green Line, which is this buffer zone between northern Cyprus and southern Cyprus, the Republic and the Northern Republic of Turkey. That means that you can, of course, go to these two different sides and have two experiences in the same day that are very unique and I think super worthwhile. The Greek side was not necessarily my favorite. They have nice old buildings, they have a nice shopping street, they have good restaurants, little cafes. It's very cute. There's a nice park, there's a couple museums. They have really good archaeological museums in Nicosia because, of course, that's the capital. So that's all definitely worth it. However, I will say the Turkish side is, at least for me, much more interesting just because the Greek side, I felt like it was lacking a little bit of spirit. The Turkish side was very interesting. They have all of these old mosques, these old mausoleums, these old military installations that happen to be on the Turkish side today. They have a couple very beautiful Hans, or they call them caravansarais, where basically people would trade things in a sort of open-air market. I found those very, very unique. They also have a very beautiful large mosque in the center as well. Just something very particular. I've traveled to the southern part of Turkey, the eastern part of Turkey, and it reminded me more of sort of southern Turkish culture. Everything was just very beautiful and nice. But I will say that the northern side of Nicosia is much poorer feeling than the Greek side. The Greek side gets all of the EU money. They get all the stimulus from the Russians. They get all of the extra money from people buying golden passports. They get all of the benefits of that. The Turkish side is really on the island with Turkey, and Turkey right now is, of course, having an awful economic time, especially the last 10 years. So that can certainly be felt in the northern part of Cyprus. It seems like times are a little bit tough, and it doesn't really take away from the fact that it's very beautiful in Nicosia. I just imagine if you were to travel outside of that, I imagine the quality of life probably dips quite a bit. You can really see this walking through the neighborhoods when you get out of the nice little city center they have. The buildings are falling apart. It looks like the infrastructure is not as good. So that's definitely noticeable. It also felt a little bit less safe than the Greek side. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was just a feeling I had. But in general, that is the most interesting experience you could have if you're talking culturally, if you're talking relevant-wise. in Cyprus. If not, just go to the beach, kick it, hang out, have a couple beers, enjoy the sun, and hop back on your flight all tan. I think that's kind of the point.